The Girl in the Boiler Room, the murder of Andrea Atkinson. Hello and welcome to another episode of Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Nickel of Nickel Investigations, and this is our Historical True Crime Tuesday series, where we examine the cases that defined history. Today we go back to the fall of 1990 to revisit a case that irrevocably shattered the sense of safety in Toronto, one that proved that sometimes the greatest danger lies just behind the most familiar face. This is the tragic story of 6-year-old Andrea Atkinson, the agonizing search for her, and the forensic battle to convict her killer, John Carlos Terceira. A Sunday morning disappearance. The setting was a high-rise apartment complex on Coatsworth Crescent in the East York neighborhood of Toronto. For young Andrea Atkinson, the building was her entire world, a place filled with neighbors, friends, and the safe routine of home. Andrea was 6 years old, with bright blonde hair, and on the morning of Sunday, October 14, 1990, she did what any Canadian child would do in a crisp autumn morning. She asked her mother if she could go outside and play. Shortly after 9 o'clock a.m., Andrea said goodbye to her mother, Ruth Windebank, and left their apartment. She was seen outside the building around 9:30 a.m. by a neighbor, a fleeting sighting that would become the last confirmed look at the little girl before she vanished. At around 11 o'clock a.m., Andrea's mother, Ruth, realized her daughter hadn't returned. This wasn't like Andrea. Ruth began an increasingly frantic search, checking with neighbors, friends, and scanning the common areas of the building. With every passing minute, the gut-wrenching realization set in that something was terribly wrong. Finally, sometime after 1:30 p.m., Ruth Windebank placed a 911 call that officially reported her daughter missing. The agonizing search and the betrayal. The disappearance of Andrea Atkinson instantly captivated and horrified Toronto. Police, community members, and even law enforcement students from Humber College mobilized into a massive search effort. Teams of officers, including Detective Tom McNamara and Detective Sergeant Rick Gauthier, scoured every corner of the neighborhood. They sifted through dumpsters, searched nearby parks, and established a command post to coordinate efforts. The investigation began focusing on the apartment complex itself. It's where she was last seen, and it's the place where a child should be safest. During these initial hours of questioning, police spoke to everyone in the building, including the maintenance staff. Among those questions was John Carlos Terceira, the building's 18-year-old caretaker, who was interviewed as early as the morning after Andrea went missing. 10 agonizing days passed, an eternity of hope and despair for the Windebank family and the entire city. On or around October 24, 1990, the search ended in the most devastating way possible. Andrea's body was discovered hidden in a boiler room, a maintenance space located on the main floor of her own apartment building. The security of the home had been violated. The physical evidence from the scene confirmed the worst. Andrea had been sexually assaulted and murdered. Forensic analysis would later suggest she was suffocated, and the killer had chosen the boiler room because the constant rumble of machinery would effectively suppress any cry for help. Up next, the science of justice. The science of justice. The discovery confirmed the killer was likely someone who had access to the restricted areas of the building, someone who knew the layout, someone like the caretaker, John Terceira. On December 3, 1990, police charged John Carlos Terceira with first-degree murder. The trial, led by Crown Attorney Paul Culver, was a landmark case for the use of forensic evidence in Canada. It was here that the emerging science of DNA analysis played a crucial, undeniable role. The prosecution presented complex evidence, including the analysis of blood, semen, and hair found at the crime scene. Specifically, Terceira's conviction hinged on the meticulous forensic work done on hairs recovered from the victim's body. Out of 9 hairs submitted for DNA analysis, 7 were a conclusive match to Terceira's profile. The defense argued that the hair samples could be a result of innocent transfer, claiming that as the building caretaker, Terceira's hair could have simply found its way into Andrea's clothing or body without him being the killer. However, the sheer volume and nature of the forensic evidence, coupled with other circumstances, including Terceira's shifting statements to police, overwhelmed the defense's theory. In February 1993, after a 56-day trial, the jury delivered their verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. John Carlos Terceira was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum parole ineligibility of 25 years. Justice, hard won, was finally served. The long shadow of parole. For Ruth Windebank, the conviction offered only a conditional peace. The trauma of losing her daughter to such a violent betrayal never faded. The next 2.5 decades were spent knowing that an absolute minimum of 25 years would pass before she would have to face her daughter's killer again. In the years since his conviction, Terceira has sought legal recourse, even petitioning the Supreme Court of Canada at one point to request independent DNA testing of Andrea's clothes, an attempt to find a loophole in the overwhelming evidence. When his 25-year-old parole eligibility finally arrived, renewed the pain for the Windebank family. Ruth Windebank has remained a steadfast and vigilant advocate for her daughter, repeatedly appearing before the Parole Board of Canada to deliver victim impact statements and oppose Terceira's release. The most recent development in this long-running pursuit of justice: John Carlos Terceira's latest bid for parole was denied. The Parole Board concluded that the severity of his crime, the lack of insight, and the risk he still poses means he must remain incarcerated. The murder of Andrea Atkinson remains a horrifying historical marker in Toronto, a chilling reminder that true evil sometimes wears a maintenance uniform, and that the fight for justice does not end with a conviction, but continues with every appeal, every hearing, every victim won by the advocates for the victims. So in conclusion, we remember Andrea Atkinson today, the 6-year-old girl who just wanted to play outside on a quiet Sunday morning. Her memory and the enduring strength of her mother, Ruth Windebank, is a permanent fixture in the history of Canadian true crime. That is all for this historical True Crime Tuesday and Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm Jay Nickel of Nickel Investigations. Until next time, stay safe and keep seeking the truth.